Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the only football podcast where the first night in a long time that we actually have some pretty big news. Let me turn that down a little bit. We actually have some pretty big news, which is um, a first for quite some weeks now. Obviously, this is the quiet time of the year. Uh, the baseball games aren't very significant. Hockey's over, basketball's over, NFL offseason, right? So it was pretty refreshing to actually have something to talk about. And unfortunately, for a lot of teams, it's actually bad news. If you're a Raiders, a Giants fan, today was not a good day for you. We're going to talk a little bit about not what is just going on to the prospective teams, the Giants and the Raiders, but we're going to dive into what is going on right now with the running back market. Now, we have discussed that briefly in the past, but do the same rules apply to what is going on right now? That is what we are going to be discussing today. So, let's get right into it. There were three players that we were keeping an eye on. In the Cowboys in Dallas, we had Tony Pollard. With the Giants, we had Saquon Barkley. And with the Raiders, we have Josh Jacobs. Now, the one that stands out the most, at least, got it. The one that stands out the most, at least to me, is the New York Giants, okay? The Giants have a interesting situation with Saquon Barkley because Saquon Barkley has been such a heavy part of what they do. And all of the success that the Giants have had, you can attribute most, if not almost all of it, to Saquon Barkley, right? He was picked in the first round, I believe, 4th overall. And the expectations were that he was going to be the next Ezekiel Elliott, right? Because Ezekiel Elliott, I believe, was drafted the year before, and he had an incredible year. I think he had his best year his rookie season. Crazy, right? We're going to talk about that too. But man, you think, okay, if there was a guy that earned the contract, right? Saquon Barkley would have been on my list, okay? Let's talk about what happened with Zeke. Okay, so Zeke's contract, right? We all kind of agree that it was a disaster of a contract. And ever since that contract, teams, it seems like, have been scared, right? But here is why I'm calling BS. We already know that Saquon Barkley is better than Zeke. I feel very confident about that, okay? So, we already know that the same principle does not apply, right? People are scared of their running backs getting paid and turning into an overpaid average running back that could have the same role filled by, um, you know, a 34-year-old running back. That's what the concern is. But here's why it doesn't make sense to me. Because when you look at the numbers and you look and see, okay, how has Saquon Barkley affected the Giants? It is incredible. And Bill in the chat saying, hello, Kyle, it's been a day. And that it has, especially for Giants fans. So we're going to kind of go over the running backs in the decisions that were made today. And we're going to talk about why they're all different. Okay. Although they're all standing in union, they're all in a big running back group chat. I guarantee it. That's why you saw CMC send out a tweet. Then you saw another tweet, another tweet. This is something that running backs are coming together about, right? This is a community subject, but even so, each running back is in a unique scenario. And I'm going to start with Saquon Barkley. The Giants were 4th last year in rushing yards and in rushing touchdowns. We were watching the Giants. I'll speak for me. I was watching the Giants play and win, I think, their first 4 games. And then they shut down the run one week and they lost by, I think, more than 10. And I remember coming on the podcast and saying, look, if you can just stop the run and make Daniel Jones beat you, they can't do it. And Daniel Jones did get a little bit better towards the end of the season, but a lot of the success that on a personal level, that I attribute to Daniel Jones, it is because of how he played during the Vikings game. But it's important that I remember that the Vikings were giving up, I think, the most points in the defense last year, or they were ranked way down there. Okay. So Daniel Jones looked good against the Vikings defense. Okay. How did he look against the Eagles defense? It does matter. And we got to keep in mind that when Saquon Barkley is on the field, the Giants have their best chance of winning. Their star is not a quarterback. When Daniel Jones is on the field, the Giants do not have their best weapon in him. Okay? This is not like Buffalo, where Josh Allen, even with Stephon Diggs, is the leader of the offense. He's their guy that they cannot be without. That's what Saquon Barkley is right now for the Giants. And I'm going to go through some of these numbers. EPA, expected points, okay? With Saquon Barkley on the field, the Giants are plus 40. Plus 40, okay? They're plus 40 with when Saquon plays. When he doesn't play, they're not plus 30, they're not plus 20, they're not even plus anything. They're minus 126.9 without Saquon Barkley. That is a player that you cannot lose. And my issue with it is that what I'm seeing in Saquon Barkley, there's no reason the Giants shouldn't pay him, in my opinion. It's almost like, what more do you want out of your first round pick? Like, Saquon Barkley was everything that he was advertised and even more, in my opinion. And he still has a lot of tread on the tires. He is not like even in the same class as people like Ezekiel Elliott, right? These people that we were. The concern, I don't know if it's real or fake, but the concern is maybe that he falls off a cliff. Le'Veon Bell held out, right? Remember, it was the 2018 season. He held out. He was 27 years old during the time that he was holding out. Saquon Barkley just turned 26. He was 25 last year. Now he's going to be 26. And Le'Veon Bell did fall off. He did disappear. And he was considered the best back in the league. So we do have, history does show us there has been some significant drop-offs, but there's also been Adrian Peterson and Derrick Henry, right? Is Saquon Barkley a 4-year running back, or is he a future Hall of Famer? Right now, it appears that the Giants aren't willing to take the chance that he's a future Hall of Famer because it would be too risky. But this to me is just bad business, because you can have a Patrick Mahomes type quarterback. Okay, Patrick Mahomes. The last first round draft pick that the Chiefs spent on a running back, I think, was in 20 I think it was 2019. It was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That was their last first round running back. And it was late in the first round, of course, because they were always in the Super Bowl or AFC Championship with Mahomes. And who replaces them? I think like a 5th round, 4th round running back, Isaiah Pacheco, right? So when you have a great quarterback and you have Saquon Barkley, I can see it being like, no, like you don't get it. We have a quarterback that has the ability to win with a running back drafted in the 3rd round. That's how special our quarterback is. Okay, fine. So be it. But if you're the Titans and you're Ryan Tannehill and you're the head coach and you know what you have with Ryan Tannehill and you know he's not Patrick Mahomes, but that doesn't mean you can't win a Super Bowl with him. Why? Because you have Derrick Henry. Okay. Part of making personnel decisions is knowing what you have and what you don't have. Daniel Jones is not a top 10 quarterback in the league, even though he has the 9th highest salary. The Giants, entire season, whether you felt like they were going to fall back or you thought that they were going to be right back where they were last year, maybe play a little better and get into a divisional game, whatever your beliefs are, if Saquon Barkley does not play on this team this year, the Giants will win, I would say, a max of 7 games. Saquon Barkley is this offense. This is the Titans without Derrick Henry right now. This isn't the team that can afford to play the game that they're playing right now. And quite frankly, if you dangle a carrot in front of a running back and you tell them at the end of their 4 years, if they played really well, they will get paid, and then they get franchise tagged like Josh Jacobs did last year, and they say, okay, we're not going to pick up your 5th-year option, and you're going to have a season that proves to us why we should keep you. And then he only led the NFL in rushing, and now here we are again. It's still not good enough for a deal. It feels like let's squeeze the most out of a player without paying him, and then we'll toss him to the curb. I really, really hope somehow, some way, the money that Saquon Barkley deserves. I was gonna say like a team will pay him, somebody else. I don't know the logistics of what they can and can't do. I've heard that if he doesn't sign the franchise tag, then he has to hold out for the whole year to be a free agent next year. I don't like that rule at all. Like if you're not getting paid, if you're not being offered an amount of money that you agree with and you're currently not under contract, why are you obligated to sit out a whole year? That's like some serious BS. I don't know who made that rule and why it's just adopted as a custom, but it doesn't seem fair at all to the player. It's almost like, what do you want to do? Sit out a year and potentially the whole NFL moves on, right? Then there's a rookie that does good. The Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama blows up, and all of a sudden, in a running back market trending south, you take a year off and people treat the name Saquon Barkley like they treat Ezekiel Elliott. Do you take that chance, or do you go, you know what? They are using me, but there's nothing I can do about it. That's not a good position to put your best player on your team. That is not like if it was Tyreek Hill, right? The Chiefs would say, "See ya, we're not paying you. We don't need to pay people big contracts." If you're the Giants, man, you letting Saquon Barkley, like, I want to make one thing clear. The franchise tag for running backs, tight ends, and quarterbacks I actually have it here, from 2000 and I believe 15, from 2015 to 8 years later, which is right now. In 2015, the franchise tag for a running back was $10.9 million. In 2023, it's $10.1 million, guys. in the last 8 years, with inflation and markets changing and guaranteed contracts and all of that into account, in 8 years, somehow the franchise tag for a running back has actually gone down $800,000. How is that possible or fair? The last player to sign a contract for more than $10 million per year was Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb. He was the last guy to do it. 716 days ago, Nick Chubb signed a contract. He's the last running back to get more than $10 million a year. Something's got to give, man. Like, seriously, if you want to be, like I said, just to clarify, if you're the Chiefs or the Eagles, or I could understand the Eagles telling Miles Sanders, "Hey, go get your bag in Carolina," right? We really you are not worth the amount of money to our team. It's team specific. It's not about you. It's about the team you belong on. Miles Sanders is not worth that big of a chunk of the circle graph financially on that Eagles roster. With that offensive line, any running back will have success over there pretty much, right? And to Carolina, with a rookie quarterback, uncertainty at the position, they're not, sure. Yeah, they will take you, right? Saquon Barkley is on the perfect team for him, and somehow it's still not working. Bill said it sucks. And then he said, and they have D-Hop too now, and the tag thing is why it started. Yeah, so we can actually roll in. Let me make sure I didn't. The Giants and the Raiders, both of them offered the franchise tag today. Just to be clear, both of them have not signed it. And just wanted to make sure I got all of my notes here. Yeah, we can roll right in to D-Hop. Oh, I'll tell you one more funny thing. I felt like Saquon Barkley is going to play even if he has to play under the franchise tag, because he wears number 26, and this is his 26-year-old year. So he's 26 this year. I know it sounds dumb, but I was thinking, people like, they love their jersey number or whatever it is. Like, he might just not want to miss his 26th year. It might be a big deal for him. The Titans, D-Hop. Let's get into it. DeAndre Hopkins was the best wide receiver that was on the market this offseason. It was not Odell Beckham Jr. It was not Nelson Aguilar. It is not the DJ Moore, right? It was DeAndre Hopkins. And DeAndre Hopkins came out and said, I want to play for a coach who cares and a team that can win a Super Bowl and a steady GM, kind of like Sean Payton's requirements, right? You get to a point where you don't care really about anything besides being in a healthy environment and a chance to win a ring. Okay. So this will be kind of a shocker that he gets to sign this deal with the Titans, because I felt like New England really could have used DeAndre Hopkins. But then again, it doesn't surprise me that New England would rather go with Devontae Parker than DeAndre Hopkins. Their old way of doing things, I heard it explained today, like the Patriots are like the old car that you get in, it nothing's custom. You roll the window up. It's, old, outdated. The radio, is no aux cord. It's still got a tape player. Just that's the Patriots, right? And the car may run, but it's a very old car, right? And the Titans have a very similar type car, right? But now they have new tires, and that's what DeAndre Hopkins is. He's new tires. He's an upgrade. He changes the team. He does probably take them from a 7-win team to an 8-win team, or an 8 to a 9. Like, DeAndre Hopkins definitely is worth a game, at least, right? And in the AFC, the tough AFC, one game might be what gets you in or keeps you out. So, um, DeAndre Hopkins, my initial thought was, man, I really wanted him to win a Super Bowl. Just being honest, that was my initial reaction. Was I was hoping that he would go somewhere where he could, besides the Chiefs, somewhere where I thought he would win a Super Bowl. But excuse me, but who's to say that Tennessee can't, right? They have a really good defense. They have I've always been really big on Mike Vrabel, by the way. They have a really great head coach. They have a great defense. They're coached extremely well. They were the first seed in the AFC, and that was not last year. That was the year before. We talk about it here all the time. How fast do we move off of teams? No, the Bills have no hype, right? Nobody trusts them. The Tennessee, who's Tennessee? They were injured last year, okay? And I know they've moved off a lot of players. AJ Brown, they drafted Traylon Burks trying to fill that spot, but the ghost of AJ Brown, right, is just haunting them all year long. They could not. And I mean, AJ Brown's just a really good player. Like him leaving was going to be felt no matter what team he played on. But Traylon Burks only had one touchdown reception last year. DeAndre Hopkins comes in, and I wouldn't say necessarily like a mentor or something, but something that Traylon Burks can, because Traylon Burks has everything to be a number one receiver. And, I think him and DeAndre Hopkins, if they get it going, they could be good together. But 3 of the 5 offensive players with the most snaps in the last 5 years for Tennessee's offense, 3 of them are gone. And that's Nate Davis, Ben Jones, and Taylor Lewan. They lost 3 of those players with the most snaps on the season. So, I mean, career touchdown receptions right now, DeAndre Hopkins, newly signed DeAndre Hopkins, leads Tennessee with 72. 72. Do you know who number 2 is? Number 2 in the building for receiving touchdowns on the team? It's Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, the head coach. Mike Vrabel. The linebacker, Mike Vrabel, with 12. And Chris Moore has 8. Vic Westbrook has 7. Oh, Nick Westbrook has 7. And Traylon Burks has 1. Traylon Burks. Okay. Look, Tennessee definitely needed DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee needed somebody, and Bill said, wow, Vrabel. Yes, they needed DeAndre Hopkins. And I think before we just put Tennessee in old news category, we have to remind ourselves that Mike Vrabel is a excellent coach. I believe Mike Vrabel's a top 10 coach. I think that he can get the most out of his players. His defense will be tough. He has a way of game planning so well that what was it? They had Malik Willis in a game where he threw for like 60 yards or something. It was an atrocious performance. They were at Arrowhead on Sunday Night Football in overtime because Mike Vrabel, right? So if this team can figure it out, the bottom line question is, how good can Ryan Tannehill be? I don't expect Will Levis to come in. I don't expect Malik Willis to come in. But how good can Ryan Tannehill be? This is probably his last year as a quarterback. If he does very poorly, so poorly that they have to bench him, and they throw Will Levis in, and they consider this whole season a wash, Tennessee will throw Will Levis in to see what he's made of. And they might do it by week 4, because if they can find out through week 4 to 18 that Will Levis is not it, he doesn't look like it, this is a big quarterback draft coming in, okay? If Ryan Tannehill plays extremely well and shocks us like he did when he first got to Tennessee, he may still be safe. Quarterbacks are being more protected. It's not just Tom Brady that can play till he's 45. You see Aaron Rodgers turning 40. Like, Peyton Manning retired when he was Aaron Rodgers' age. And to us, it felt like Manning was an old man. Remember how we treated Brett Favre when he kept coming back out of retirement? He played the same amount of seasons that Peyton Manning played, I believe, 18. So, quarterbacks, even Ryan Tannehill can earn himself a couple more years. Mike Vrabel, to me, feels a lot like Dan Campbell. We don't need to just move off of a quarterback for the sake of moving off of a quarterback, right? However, the moment you start losing, the pressure will come. Daniel Jones, he's the same thing like Ryan Tannehill. Like, they paid him a lot of money, so the pressure will be, okay, what can we do with him? But if the Giants don't have Saquon Barkley, and then Daniel Jones only wins 4 or 5 games because they don't have a running game, there's going to be a lot of chaos during draft the month of April next year. I'll just say that. It'll be crazy because you paid the guy like he's a top 10. You're going to have fans wanting to go after, an insanely gifted passer. But how much do you dig your heels in? Le'Veon Bell, man, I don't believe I read this. Oh no, I did. I did go over this. Let me know if I did or not in the chat. Did I go over Le'Veon Bell? The season that he sat out, I don't believe I went over the numbers. So 2017 season for Le'Veon Bell, he had 321 carries, 1,291 yards. Okay. The rest of his career from 2018 until he retired, he had 366 carries, 1,218 yards. Le'Veon Bell had a better season in 2017, and then he held out, and if you added up all of his NFL snaps until he never played again, it wouldn't equal what he did in 2017. Deciding to hold out can be costly. It can. It is a gamble. Just to emphasize that. Okay? So, are we going to be able to get championship level production out of Ryan Tannehill? And just like the Giants with Eli Manning, I don't think it's going to take that much. I think it's just going to take minimizing turnovers, making smart decisions, and moving the ball. And when you got a running back that averages 5 yards a carry, shouldn't be that hard, right? So that whole scenario pretty much goes for Saquon Barkley. Now, Josh Jacobs is totally different because a lot of people that I talk to that are Raiders fans say that they don't necessarily believe that Josh Jacobs is for real. Okay. Now, I feel like Josh Jacobs has been pretty consistent, but there are, and I interviewed them here on Only Football, there are those that say that Josh Jacobs, he had one good year, right? I think Josh Jacobs may be getting better, right? And he had an interesting tweet that Phil Simms actually posted from an interview he did with him. And he said, and I quote, Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. Okay, he told us, Phil Simms, He'd be okay playing on the franchise tag, but only if the team loaded up at all other positions and loaded players around him. But if you want me to come back as the hero, you better pay me like a hero. The idea there is Josh Jacobs is saying if you want to bring in a win now mentality, amount of talent, and you want to distribute my production to people like DeAndre Hopkins and all these other weapons you want to load up, you can franchise tag me. Just like a running back when he's on a loaded roster like Philly will be like, I'll take a franchise tag. Travis Kelsey, not even the highest paid tight end, despite he might be the best receiving tight end ever, maybe when it's all said and done. No, I'll take a smaller salary. I would rather be on a team that I can win a Super Bowl every year and we're doing something special here and we have a dynasty going. I would rather do that than chase a bag and be stuck in Cleveland or somewhere else that I don't want to be. Okay? But Josh Jacobs is like, but if you don't want to bring in those players and your plan is going to be to give me 250 carries this season and the game is going to be on my back and you want me to come in and be the hero like I was against the Seahawks when I ran for like 300 yards and broke the run open in overtime to win the game. If you want that kind of production, you got to pay for it. You don't get to franchise tag that kind of production, right? You only have so many NFL leading rushing seasons. You only have so many years over 1,800 yards in your career. And these running backs are getting to the point where they're like, I'm not wasting one on a franchise tag. If you pay me big money, you'll get that guy. You get what you pay for. And the running backs, like I said, they have to get together on this topic. One of the solutions that have been brought up with, I believe, the NFL committee is that the NFL running back union has suggested that when running backs are drafted, a new rule that would minimize the initial contract. So instead of using up a running back for 4 years and then doing their 5th-year option and then franchising them and then kicking them to the curb and then they never actually get real money. They were your bell cow for over half a decade and getting, no real money. Instead of doing that, they would only be able to sign him on a 2-year contract, right? So they would sign a 2-year, $20 million contract, right? But it would make it so you wouldn't be drafting running backs as often. And the shortened time frame would mean you totally wasted your draft pick if you only got 2 years. If you get Saquon Barkley and he's awesome, but you only get him for 2 years, you could make a legitimate debate that that's a bad pick if you weren't planning on keeping him. So if you don't want to waste your draft pick, because you can definitely justify 6 years out of a pick. Hey, we got 6 good years out of our first round pick. You'll take that. You'll take that. But 2, right? So I think this is kind of the direction that this is going to have to go in. I haven't heard any other solutions to me that made as much sense as that. And I'm glad somebody thought of it because it sucks, sitting back and watching this happen. And for Josh Jacobs, I really hope he gets traded. He has been just destroying the Broncos every time he plays us. It is like it's been ugly. But I don't know what's gonna happen. I normally would predict, some kind of an outcome, but it doesn't feel like just a regular year because there has been this whole movement this offseason with running backs being available, like Leonard Fournette, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott. Tony Pollard signed his because he was like, look, this whole entire thing started because of Zeke's bad contract. Like, Tony knew, like, I can't tell them, no, I want a big contract. It's like when a girl, gets out of a toxic relationship, you don't want to just right away be like, I want to know if you want to marry me. Like, you got to give them some time to get that taste out of their mouth from that contract with Zeke. But Tony Pollard is another dude that last year was a top 5 running back, and he was 4 times the player Ezekiel Elliott was. So Tony Pollard willing to sign his, and that's probably smart. Maybe, um, maybe he believes that if he helps the team out by doing the franchise tag, that by next year he'll be able to get some real money, because if he can prove 2 years in a row that you know, he is him, then he's going to bring in the money. So, those are the 3 things we're tracking right now. Now, nobody has to show up, I believe, now to training camp because they didn't sign the franchise tag. Um, I believe they're not even allowed to show up to the facility because they're not under contract currently. So I don't. I hope that these players are training on their own if they're planning on playing. Because I was thinking about it, I'm like, why would Le'Veon Bell fall off? So I know Adam Gase was the offensive coordinator for the Jets, and he is terrible. So that is definitely part of the reason. Mike Tomlin is one of the greatest coaches ever, and then you go over to Adam Gase. But beyond that, keeping your body in shape when you have an entire year off can be probably challenging for some people, especially if you like to play video games. You've spent so many years just grinding and grinding and grinding, and finally, training camp. That feeling where it's like, it's not just the feeling of free time. It's the feeling of free time when you know that you would normally be doing something you don't like. It's skipping school, and that feeling you get when you know that you would normally be in that class you hate, but instead you're here, right? That kind of like that feeling, I could see how that would make you not want to work out and not want to train super hard and not want to put in all the work that you would normally put in. And Bill saying right here, Saquon is back training in Arizona again. And, you know, I'm not saying he's not training in Arizona, but I do know that no matter what they decide to do, that players will always be training when they're not at the facility. And every agent knows that, their job is to always be doing something. If they're not contributing on the field to the game, they're working on themselves to be better when they come back, right? Um, and maybe he is training, 3 times a week. I would imagine that a player that is as good as Saquon Barkley trains. Don't get me wrong, okay? Um, I'm just throwing that out there because Le'Veon Bell was an animal. He was awesome, and then he sucked, right? So I'm just suggesting an idea. I don't actually think Saquon is just this good on accident. I think he squats like more weight every year or something crazy like that. Um, but it will probably be a challenge for him, okay, to stay motivated when you're not actually on a team. But all of his motivation is probably going to be to prove the Giants wrong for not paying him. Um, just like Josh Jacobs will be that way, just like Le'Veon Bell was that way. Like, everybody just wants to prove them wrong. And will it'll be interesting to watch. Will one of these players, whether it's Tony Pollard or Saquon Barkley or Josh Jacobs. Will one of these players be, um, if they were to be on a contract, would we say in 3 years it was a bad contract? And if so, which player is it? I feel probably I I actually feel very confident in these 3 players for the next 3 to 4 years, right? And I think Saquon Barkley would have deserved a 3-year, $55 million contract. And Bill said, "Yeah, it is a possibility. Hopefully he plays. It's all I got." I know. And we'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully the NFL is better when all of its talent is playing, right? So like hopefully all these players find a way to get back on the field while also getting what they feel they deserve. Because that is also part of it. You can't like you can't ignore your morals for money, right? If these guys really think that they need to do this for, to s- s- keep the integrity of this position, right? Like talking about like your kids, what if they want to be a running back? Like I do believe we were at a kind of a turning point, right? Once the market starts going down and the talent keeps getting better, we're gonna have a problem on our hands. So, um, this may be one of those things. Like we talk about the referees going on strike. We talk about, um, what was another thing? The no, that was referees too. Those fake refs that they had. Um, But this could be a moment where we have Zeke Elliott, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs. Like, if this many people decide not to play this year, that would be historical, right? That would be something that would make the 2023 season in the history books of the NFL forever and ever. So we're here for the ride, and hopefully, for your sake, you get your players and it would be a happy ending. Tomorrow, we normally don't go live, but I'm going to interview Temple. And I've been really excited to get somebody on here. So I'm really excited. I reached out to Temple. I said, "Hey man, can you get on the podcast? The people been asking about you." And he said, "Really?" I was like, "Absolutely." So he said, "Yeah, I'll come on." And he was like, "What about Tuesday?" And I was like, "Tuesday's perfect because I don't go live Tuesday, which means we'll be going live Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday." So check it out tomorrow. Um, it'll probably just show up as a surprise in the middle of the afternoon, but yeah, live with Temple tomorrow. So thank you guys for tuning in. There's going to be more NFL news. I just wanted to keep today's episode specifically about the running back franchise tag. I don't want to branch off besides the Andre Hopkins deal because that is, we have to talk about that. But everything else we're going to be talking about tomorrow, along with some surprise topics. So thank you guys for tuning in again, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, have a good night, Bill, and go Broncos. See ya.